more about a sixth migrant child who died in U.S. custody. Previous reporting had the number of migrant child deaths at 5. But CBS News confirmed Wednesday night that Darlyn Valle died in September 2018, trying to get to her mother in Nebraska. Omar Villafranca has more on her story.
CBS News was the first to confirm that 10-year-old Darlyn Valle died in September of 2018 while in custody of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. The Salvadorian girl is the sixth migrant child to die after crossing the U.S. border that we know of. When the 10-year-old entered the United States, she was brought to this Border Patrol processing facility here in McAllen. Behind these fences are the buses that brought her here. Medical professionals determined that she had a serious heart condition and she had surgery more than 200 miles away in San Antonio. She then fell into a coma. She was moved to Arizona and then to Nebraska, where she later died.
I've never seen anything like this humanitarian and security crisis we have right now.
In an interview with CBS News, we asked Customs and Border Patrol Deputy Commissioner Robert Perez if any more migrant children had died in government custody.
I'm very confident in the data that CBP has reported with respect to deaths in CBP custody.
10-year-old Valle's death was the second migrant child death reported this week. 16-year-old Carlos Hernandez died in Weslaco Monday. Acting DHS Secretary Kevin McAleenan went before a Senate committee the day after CBS News broke the story of a sixth migrant child death.
Does every child in CBP custody have access to a pediatrician?
No.
McAleenan said the migrant children are screened by a medical professional, but that more resources are needed.
But unless Congress addresses the pull factors, namely our vulnerable legal framework for immigration, children will continue to be put at risk during a dangerous journey to our border.
Omar Villafranca joins us now from McAllen, Texas. So, Omar, you and your team broke the news Wednesday night of the death of Darlyn Valle. What has the reaction been from the government?
Well, we heard today Speaker Pelosi make some comments wanting to find out exactly what happened, and also it came up during Senate testimony today when Kevin McAleenan was in front of a Senate committee today. They were asking him basically what was going on, and this is now the sixth death, and it was new, so there was more unveiling of the process that frankly a lot of lawmakers didn't know about. There were some people who did not know that you didn't have to report, the government agencies didn't have to report if a migrant child died. They only had to report it internally and to child welfare groups. That was it. So a lot more discussion, a lot more reaction, but of course there's a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. We're waiting to see what's actually going to happen on the legislative side, if there's going to affect any changes.
What about with the White House? Have White House officials said what they plan to do about the situation?
We have. The White House is basically asking for $3.3 billion from Congress, and they want to use it to boost basically the facilities like this where they're housing unaccompanied minors and also processing centers, and not just to move them through because of the huge numbers, but also to feed them and care for them. There's a huge number. And part of that reason is they are very overwhelmed, and they absolutely, Customs and Border Patrol and DHS is basically saying we are overwhelmed. We need all the help we can get. They want it in the form of money. But again, it's talk. We've got to see how the legislative process moves and something actually happens.
Well, Omar, what exactly are the procedures when the United States government takes into custody a migrant child?
It varies, because sometimes they're unaccompanied, which means it could be literally a minor child that's not coming with any known parent or family member, or if they are coming with them, one. Now, from what we are told, Customs and Border Patrol, when they're apprehended, they're brought to a facility like this one. This is one of the main processing places, and they are medically looked at. Now, it's a medical professional. It's not a pediatrician if it's a child, and that was made very clear by acting DHS Secretary Kevin McAleenan. He said it's not a pediatrician, it is a medical professional. They are given a basic, look over by a medical professional. But as far as if they're checked in again, we're not sure. What's key here is that if they are a minor, federal law says they have to be turned over to a group that's called ORR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement. They have to be turned over in 72 hours, 3 days, because ORR is built to handle and care for kids. The way you care for a 40-year-old adult is way different than the way you care for a kid, and that's what they're specialized. In one of the latest deaths that happened, that did not happen, and there's a lot of questions why it did not happen.
All right, Omar Villafranca reporting from the border for us. Omar, thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
The shooting